to come up. How do we engage these young people? How do we make them more active? Because many of them are losing hope. Many of them have studied under very difficult circumstances, Mr. Speaker. Just this weekend when I was at home, Mr. Speaker, a lady came to see me and told me I educated she educated the son under very difficult circumstances. And before even she concluded talking to me, she was already breaking down. The son has been at home for 5 years with no form of employment. And I know there are very many cases like those across the country, Mr. Speaker. Others have stayed for 10 years. Others have stayed even for 15 years after graduating. And so giving them an opportunity as out even for other job opportunities in different places, Mr. Speaker. And we shouldn't discourage the young people. You know, when you always just telling them, go to other skills, go do businesses, while we have not given them the capital to start the businesses, Mr. Speaker. Or even as leaders, and insisting to them that higher level of education is not important, while all our children are doing masters and even doctorates. So it is not important that it is important that we encourage our young people to embrace education, but also give them avenues, Mr. Speaker, of employment, and internship can be one of those avenues that will give them that opportunity. Mr. Speaker, for example, this whole issue of JSS teachers who are recruited under the internship program, it is important that they were given that opportunity even as funds are looked for, because I know there are members who will argue, where will we get the money to recruit all these interns, Mr. Speaker? But it also gives them work experience, and it gives them an opportunity when employment now is available, or vacancies are available, Mr. Speaker, the interns should be given a priority. What we have seen for example, in the teaching profession, we find that there is a ranking system. They have been vetted. They have looked at how many years they've been out. The merit list is out there. Mr. Speaker, it is important that those who have done internship, when vacancies come out of employment, they be given priority. Because some of them have interned for many years and are hoping that if a vacancy is available, they'll be recruited. But some of us, even though somewhere, we are giving them to those who've just graduated, while we have very many people who have been interning, who have been waiting for recruitment, Mr. Speaker, and they get so demoralized and discouraged because they are not given priority during employment, Mr. Speaker. Also, there is a case that was in court about the interns, and the court ruled that there is no legal framework in this country that looks at matters to do with internship, and even one that looks at matters to do with interns, Mr. Speaker. And that is what this bill actually ensures, that as a country we start somewhere. We can always improve it as we implement it. As we go forward, we can always come up with amendments so that we ensure as a country we have a bill that looks at internship at the public service. And even in future, we can encompass the private sector. They can come on board to see how they can also plug in. Mr. Speaker, on the side of the interns will be expected to abide by the rules and regulations of the public service institution that will have recruited them. Secondly, they will be expected to demonstrate commitment and willingness to fully and actively participate in the learning experiences of the internship programs. Mr. Speaker, they'll also be ready to be deployed to any relevant office or workstation within the public service institution where there may be an internship vacancy. Mr. Speaker, the intern, he himself or herself has to make effort to acquire relevant skills in the area of specialization. I would also like to call upon the interns and even those who are given these opportunities, Mr. Speaker, not just to go through them because it is a requirement. Personally, when I was recruited as an intern at KBC, I told myself I will not live there without a job. I will do my work so well that even when my internship is done, those who work there will see that I was valuable there. And that is what I did. I worked so hard. When the journalists were coming in at 6:37, I was always there. So that when another journalist is late, I will be given that slot to go to the field, because interns always accompany the journalist. But sometimes if there are no journalists to be sent out, as an intern, I was being sent out. In the evening, instead of leaving at 4 p.m. or 5 p.m., or 3 even, because there's no work and you're just lazing around, I would always stay until the 7 p.m. news has started. And so there can be breaking news at around 6 or 6:30. And when the editor walks into the newsroom, they will always find me there. And then I would be sent for that assignment. And slowly, I got experience, I got to learn, and I would want to tell our interns, even if you're given the slightest job, do it to your perfection. Learn more, ask questions, until when a vacancy appears there, that institution will always remember. Make a mark in any institution that you get your internship, so that others can see the value that you add to that institution or organization, and it will open doors for you when the time comes, Mr. Speaker. The interns are also expected to complete assignments given by their mentor or supervisor. They are also required to provide regular feedback to the supervisor on the progress that the intern is making and any challenges thereto with regard to the internship program. They are also expected to observe confidentiality of information and security of tools or requirements that are placed in the possession of the intern in the course of the internship program. Some of them are given laptops, some of them are given cameras, some of them are given anything that you'll be given by that institution to enable you to learn or to work. You should ensure that you safeguard it and return it to the institution. Also on the same, ensure a proper handover of all the materials and equipment belonging to the public service institution at the end of the internship period, and ensure clearance by the relevant authorities before leaving the internship station. Mr. Speaker, there's something I wanted us to be clear about in the bill, on which Cabinet Secretary will be involved in this matter. I know that we have a Public Service Commission, and they're the ones who have been looking at the bigger picture of interns or internship recruitment, Mr. Speaker, in the country. But we can't leave the whole issue of interns to public service, Mr. Speaker, and that is why this bill was not looking at just the Public Service Commission, because even the Parliamentary Service Commission recruits. And it is not PSC that recruits on behalf of Parliament. Parliament itself does it. The Judicial Service Commission also recruits, Mr. Speaker. And we have other institutions which also recruit interns, and not through the public service. So the Public Service Commission can continue doing its work. They're doing a tremendous job. We've seen them advertising very many positions of internship. They're doing a good job, and they should continue with their job. But what this bill looks at is the entire public service, the entire public service sector, because there are other institutions which also recruit individually, as I said, like the PSC and the Judicial Service Commission itself. And so in no way does this bill take away the powers or the work that the Public Service Commission does. It only gives a bigger framework on how we deal with internship as a country in the public service sector, Mr. Speaker. And so what will the interns be entitled to? They'll be entitled to paternity and maternity leave. When I was making my submission to the Labor Committee, Mr. Speaker, they told me that the young men do not require paternity leave. You've just come to work. That is the mentality I want us to change, and to give interns just the dignity as the rest of the people in the country have, Mr. Speaker. The second thing is subsistence allowance, as may be determined by the Cabinet Secretary from time to time. They can consider in their regulations how much the interns need to be paid, but the allowance has to be there, Mr. Speaker, so that it can enable them to work and to deliver in their mandate where they'll be interning, Mr. Speaker. So, as I conclude, the internship period shall not be shall be valid for any period as may be determined by a person in charge of a public service institution, but such internship period shall not exceed 12 months, Mr. Speaker. We said 12 months so that the intern can gain enough experience. Because if we just do 3 months or 4 or 5 months, Mr. Speaker, an intern will not have gotten the enough experience where they'll be working, Mr. Speaker. But then also they can't exceed 12 months, because there are very many other young people out there who want these opportunities. And so we thought that 12 months is sufficient enough for an intern to gain the relevant experience where they will be working. Finally, Mr. Speaker, an intern shall be liable to have his or her internship discontinued on the grounds of absence from the public service institution without permission or reasonable cause for a period exceeding 24 hours. And so interns should know that this bill is not just to safeguard them or protect them, but they also need to ensure that the absenteeism is not a matter that they will be condoning when they are working. Also, gross and disorderly misconduct, unsatisfactory performance, failure to obey any lawful institutions, or commission of a criminal offense. An intern may terminate internship by submitting a 30 days notice in writing to the person in charge of public service. And so I would like to urge this House and members to support this bill, Mr. Speaker, because it is one that brings together our young people, gives them opportunities to acquire the relevant skills and experience as interns, but also ensuring that they do it in a dignified manner, and also to urge the government of the day to continue to provide money for their recruitment. I am happy that in the past, for example, like in 2018, 2019, and 1920, Kenya shillings 1 billion was provided in the budget for the recruitment of interns, Mr. Speaker. If anything, I would urge that more money is put into the internship program so that we can mop up our young people, give them experience and skills. It can even give them the skills to go and then venture into other areas on their own, Mr. Speaker. And we have also included those who are doing, who are in TVET institutions, because as a country, we are focusing and emphasizing on the important role that our TVETs play. So without further taking so much time, Mr. Speaker, I would like to call upon the able chair of Labor and Social Service Affairs, who accorded me all the necessary opportunity to work on this bill, Honorable Muchangi Karemba from Runyenjes, to second. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you.
Just sit down before you second. And, you know, the Honorable Suda said, make a mark at the place you get a chance for internship. And I wanted to use that statement to welcome students from the United States International University, Africa, from Roysambu, to follow proceedings of this House this morning. They are seated in the Speaker's Gallery, and they are welcome to follow what's going on in the House this morning. In the same vein, I also wish to welcome students from Waithaga Boys High School, Kiharu constituency, Muranga, and students from Tulaga Secondary School, Kinangop, Nyandarua County. They are all welcome to follow our proceedings this morning. Karemba, now you can proceed and second this particular bill.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for the opportunity to second this bill by the Honorable Naisula Lesuda. And Honorable Speaker, allow me to say and thank the Honorable Naisula for having been very focused on this issue of internship, having been a beneficiary of the internship program back at the KBC. And her pursuit for this legislation began in the last House, and she has consistently followed to ensure that it comes to the floor of this House. Honorable Speaker, the issue of internship is very important, and as the Honorable member has indicated, that it requires a legal framework, because right now it is scattered all over, and there is need to harmonize the internship program so that the process of undertaking the internship becomes well guided in the laws, and it becomes easy to offer opportunities to young people. So, Honorable Speaker, the Public Service Internship Bill 2022, which was sponsored by the Honorable Naisula Lesuda, MP, is a bill for an act of parliament to make provision for internship of college and university graduates in the public training and acquisition of skills by graduates. The bill was published on the 16th of December 2022 and read a first time in the House on the 8th of March 2023, pursuant to the Standing Order 127-1. The bill was committed to the Departmental Committee on Labour for consideration and facilitation of public participation, pursuant to the Standing Order 127. The Clerk of the National Assembly placed advertisements in the print media on the 18th March 2023, seeking for comments from the public on the bill pursuant to the Article 118 of the Constitution. In addition to the request for memoranda from the public, the following stakeholders were requested to submit their views to the committee. 1. Office of the Attorney General and Department of Justice. 2. State Department for Public Service. 3. Public Service Commission. 4. Law Society of Kenya. And lastly, Kenya Law Reform Commission. Honorable Speaker, the committee received submissions from 1. The Honorable Naisula Lesuda, who is the sponsor of the bill. Then 2, the State Department for Public Service. 3, Public Service Commission. And 4, Law Society of Kenya. Honorable Speaker, the committee, having considered the bill and stakeholders' submissions, observed the following. That 1, the bill incorrectly placed the management of the internship program under the Cabinet Secretary responsible for matters related to labor. The committee proposed an amendment to provide that the responsible Cabinet Secretary shall be the Cabinet Secretary responsible for public service. 2, the bill seeks to guard against the enactment of several legislations to provide for internship within the public service and seeks to harmonize the salient principles to be observed by all offices in the public service in the recruitment of interns. 3, the term certificate has been used in 2 different contexts. 1, to mean the standard minimum qualification for internship, and the second as a certificate issued upon completion of the internship period. Then the 4th issue was there is need to amend clause 5, 1, to provide that the act shall apply to every public office as defined in Article 260 of the Constitution. Then 5, internship is not only aimed at professional registration, but also to acquire necessary skills and experience to enhance employability. And this the Honourable Member has really spoken to. And currently, Honourable Speaker, we have thousands of young people who have been engaged in this internship program. And what is happening across the country is that these young people are being offered a chance to know what happens in these public offices. And it is the surest way of ensuring that our country has sufficient people who are full of energy and who also understand how the job is done in these public offices. Because, Honorable Speaker, every day people are retiring in government, and those vacancies should be filled up by people who possess the necessary skills, but not just the skills, but also the experience that goes with those offices. We have very good success stories, Honorable Speaker, from those people who have been given internship opportunities. And going by what we have seen, if when we enact this law, I am sure more people will benefit, and especially the young people who come from the rural areas, because the opportunities that they've been getting through the Public Service Commission draws membership from across the country. And they are posted to different offices across the ministries. And we have very good reports coming from them and the exposure that they have gotten from these offices, which is going to help them begin life or even become more employable, or rather improve or enhance employability. Any internship period below 6 months may not be adequate for acquisition of relevant experience and skills, and inculcating of public service values and ethos. Then 7, the current bill has no provision of the involvement of the private sector, compelling the private sector to take on interns, and perhaps employing them permanently would create a financial burden to companies trying to stay afloat, as the number may be unsustainable. However, perhaps with the incentive from government, the companies may take and onboard the interns. Well, we believe that can also be provided for in subsequent legislation that does not have to involve this, because the Honorable Naisula dwelled on the public service sector, but we believe even the private sector, Honorable Speaker, if they are given an opportunity and incentives, they can provide chances for young people to get interns. Because, for instance, the number of people who work in the public sector, in the public service, are approximately 1 million. But this country has up to about 20 million people who are employed. So it means we have up to around 18 to 19 million who are employed in the private sector. So it means if the private sector is given incentives, which includes tax rebates, they can be able to accommodate many more young people and give them the necessary skills and experience, and therefore the energy, the skills, and the knowledge in these young people can be properly utilized, other than the congestion that comes with the opportunities that are available in the public sector. Then one of the other observations, Honorable Speaker, we made was that the bill will cure the mischief of exploitation of professionals like teachers, doctors, lawyers, who currently are taken on as unpaid interns in the private sector to gain experience, yet are struggling to repay the loans taken during their schooling. Honorable Speaker, there is a lot of exploitation. And we are discussing this bill at a time when Teacher Service Commission has terminated services of up to 700 JSS teachers. And it is very unfortunate for Teacher Service Commission to do that to young people who are just trying to speak out and say about how unfair it is for them not to be absorbed in the Teacher Service, with the Teacher Service Commission. Honorable Speaker, when the intern doctors went on strike, they stayed away from work for over 50 days. And they were claiming for as high, or rather, they were claiming for an amount as high as 206,000. They were never fired. They were never interdicted. They remained employees. But JSS teachers who have been earning 17,000 shillings per month, when they speak out, TSC interdicts them. They have show cause letters right now as we speak. And I believe it is the time this Honorable House calls the CS for Education and the Teacher Service Commission to appear before this House and to explain as to the reasons as to why they have to be very unfair to these young people who are just trying to speak out and fight for what rightfully belongs to them. So I believe this proposal, this proposed legislation by the Honorable Naisula is going now to cure that, because it will provide for how much these interns should earn. You can imagine those of us who are in Kenyatta University, and several of us have been mentioned here. I don't want to repeat because you all know us. Yeah, I am told the deputy majority leader was in KU, but I never saw him. I never saw him there. Maybe he was there.
You were too young to have seen him. You were too young to have seen him. Don't throw those stones. Go ahead.
Yeah. Those of us who are in KU, we were there. All of us were there. And yes, I can see another honorable members who was in KU. The doctors, yes, the doctors were there. The lawyers were there. The teachers. We were sharing the same hostels. So when the doctors graduated, they go to an hospital, they are paid 206,000. But another teacher, whom you are sharing a hostel with, goes to a school, is given an internship, and is paid 70. But I really wish to thank the honorable members of the Departmental Committee on Labor for the work that they did. They came in and supported this bill, and I believe that by the discussions by the honorable members who are in here and those that will come, we will be able to enrich this bill as we look forward to its enactment. So thank you, Honorable Speaker, and I second.
Thank you. Honorable members, I now do propose that the Public Service Internship Bill, National Assembly Bill number 63 of 2022, be now read a second time. And the first member to have a bite of that cherry would be the honorable member for Westlands.
Thank you, Chair. Honorable Speaker, for giving me a chance to contribute to this very important bill. I want to thank the Honorable Leisuta for bringing it. Honorable Speaker, this has been a government policy and was under the Public Service Commission that they take on interns and post them to various government agencies. But it was not something that was properly regulated or governed by a legal framework. And this capturing it in a bill, Mr. Speaker, it will give now the Public Service Commission to structure how they will use these interns. Interns, Mr. Speaker, are people who have qualified. They have trained, they have even graduated. It's only that they have not been placed in the market. They have not gotten jobs. But when they are placed in various government agencies and even in the private sector, they attain experience and they learn on the job. And even when the recruitment comes, these are the people who will be given the first priority. And I believe, if properly done, Mr. Speaker, it will absorb many of our young people who are graduating from various levels of colleges, universities, and lower kata colleges, so that, Mr. Speaker, they find something to do and it can expose them to many other things. And I also even propose that when interns are taken, the way we do it even in the legal circle, that you can do pupillage in one law firm, but you can also look at other opportunities, including going to the judiciary and everywhere, so that you have a wide spectrum of learning and understanding things. And then, Mr. Speaker, also the bill provides for remuneration. We realize that we have been seeing the doctors, when they were on strike, Mr. Speaker, they were talking about payment of the interns, how much they should be paid. For me, once they have taken this and given it a legal framework, there should be money appropriated for this program, so that these interns, when they are placed somewhere, they should be given some stipend that will keep them going, and also the program should last for a sufficient time so that these people can learn. And every time people coming from the college, they find a way to go out and learn, Mr. Speaker. And I just feel that this is a very good bill, that we should all of us support it. And also look at the way the TSA has treated the teachers. Mr. Speaker, these people were agitating for their rights. They have been nothing, Mr. Speaker, to give them, security of their job. So when they come out and express themselves, they are facing frustrations. JSS, Mr. Speaker, it's a teething problem, and that we need to address. But you cannot come up with a punitive, measure that you now dismiss them, and without even giving them an opportunity to be heard. Because if people go to the street, it means there's something wrong. And when we have something that now will protect these people, the law that is in place now, it will, Mr. Speaker, bring, I think, order in that in the market, and people will be, our students and young people will be given an opportunity, Mr. Speaker, to express themselves. Mr. Speaker, Kenya trains a lot of many skilled people, and then we export them abroad. This program that the government is having, that they are looking for opportunities abroad to absorb our young people, it is a defeatist program, Mr. Speaker, because why should we train people and give them away? We should train them and retain them so that we can now expand, Mr. Speaker, our economy, and so that, because the government is in power, when the government is in power, they should come up with policies that will generate and create wealth and expand the economy that can absorb all Kenyans who are coming out of colleges. We should not have this brain drain, that our people are trained and then they are going to be used by somebody else. The government is losing on that because we have invested so heavily in our education, and then we allow them to go. The government should, first of all, start looking inside to find a way of how they can absorb these young people, come up with policies that will encourage people to come and invest more in our country, expand our industries, and many other opportunities that will absorb young people in Kenya, instead of sending them abroad. And we have seen those who go there because the government has got no capacity even to follow and know what is happening to these young people when they go abroad. And that's why we find many times mistreatment and many other things happening to them. And Mr. Speaker, I believe we can find homegrown solutions. And homegrown solution, Mr. Speaker, will be cured by this legislation that Honorable Lesuta has brought. Mr. Speaker, I want to support and urge all members who will contribute this bill that we should pass it and make sure that it will go a long way to address the issues that are, Mr. Speaker, have been there. But previously, it was just a policy, but if we put it now in a legal framework, it will give now more a structured way of engagement. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. The member for Kitui South.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, for giving me this chance also to support this important bill, Public Service Internship Bill 2022, sponsored by the Honorable Naisula. Honorable Speaker, I would like to thank the Honorable Naisula for taking up this. And I sat here, Honorable Speaker, listening to the Honorable Naisula as she was moving this motion, and she took the students who are likely to be going through internship, or those who are going through internship now, and those who will go through internship in the near future through her journey at KBC. And this is very important information that they must take, that when you get that internship, make sure you work so hard, make sure that you are felt, make sure that they feel your presence when the 12 months are over so that they can call you back. Honorable Speaker, having looked at this bill, I realize that it is a very important bill that in essence is going to give provisions for internships for our students in colleges and universities. And I would also like to suggest that we also think of our TTIs, where we are getting many graduates who can be absorbed by the labor market on technical skills. Honorable Speaker, there are many times that when our students, our graduates are looking for jobs and they are told that they do not have enough experience, this internship program is going to give them an opportunity so that they are able to get the required skills and the required experiences such that it is easier for them to be employed. Honorable Speaker, in this bill, the bill raises a matter of the stipend that is supposed to be paid to these students. Mr. Speaker, this is a matter that needs to be looked at because the stipend that the students get should be able to sustain them, give them the transport to work, give them a place to sleep, and also give them a possibility of being able to stay within the working environment. So, as the proposal of this bill suggests, that it is important to put more money in it so that we can enhance the stipends. Honorable Speaker, I've seen that this bill also talks about the responsibilities of both the institution that is taking the student and the interns themselves. And in these roles and responsibilities, I support it because it is talking about establishing a committee that is going to look at, to ensure that an announcement is made. Most of the times as members of parliament, we are getting so many SMSs and messages and letters from students who would like to be placed. And Honorable Speaker, what I do is that I just pick all of them, come up with a table, write their names, their skills, and the possible institution that I think they would go to and push it to the Public Service Commission. And I think this is not a good way of doing it. So having this bill means that we are going to have a proper place where the students will be placed. When they get to the institution, then they have a committee that will induct them and make sure that they are told their responsibilities within that institution and the do's and don'ts. And I believe that this is something that they will be able to use whether they are hired in that institution or not. Honorable Speaker, I've seen that it also stipulates very clear responsibilities of the interns themselves. That when an intern gets into an institution, they must know that this is a working place, and as much as they are young, they are able to be told what is it that they can do there, what is it that they can do in that institution and what they cannot do, including the assets of that institution, both hard assets and soft assets. Mr. Speaker, I want to go to something very sensitive, that as we speak today, this morning, Honorable Speaker, I have received a letter from students, from interns, JSS students from Kitui South, who have been terminated because of participating in a strike. Honorable Speaker, I do not know whether I'm the only member of parliament who has received such a letter. And the reason as to why we are receiving these letters from intern teachers who have been terminated because of participation in a strike is because there was no proper law on how long the interns were going to work, how much they were going to be paid, and the termination conditions. So, Honorable Speaker, as we debate this bill, I would like to ask the Teachers Service Commission very kindly to allow these students who may have been involved in one matter or another to just hire all of them without discrimination. Honorable Speaker, I did not see those teachers from Kitui South participating in the strike. I did not see them on TV anywhere. And I am appealing to the TSC as the Member of Parliament for those intern teachers in Motomo and Ikoda who have been told they have been terminated in the spirit of this bill that we are discussing today, so that all of them are hired just like the other students. I believe that they are not the only ones who participated in this strike, Honorable Speaker. That one I say very, very kindly, because I'm also asking for forgiveness in case they may have been involved in any form of impropriety because of failure to have food for their children and all that. So, Honorable Speaker, that is an appeal that I make. Honorable Speaker, going back to this document, is that I would like to encourage the students that when you get hired, make sure that you are available, like the Honorable Lesuda was in KBC. Make sure that they feel your presence, like the Honorable Lesuda was felt in KBC. Make sure that you are the one who is available when the MD is looking for someone to send around. Make sure you are available, like the Honorable Lesuda did in KBC, so that the moment you finish your internship, they will be looking for you. And Honorable Speaker, as I finish, I want to say that I was an intern in Kenyatta University. And the moment I was given the opportunity to become a graduate assistant, to carry books for Professor Otiende and for Professor Sifuna, I made sure that I carried the books so nicely. And I wiped the table, and I made sure that the seat was comfortable. I made sure that the notes were nicely placed. In fact, I made sure that the table was not flat, that it was sliding, because as professors age, they don't see very well, so you have to know the measurements. And I made sure that the university had to give me a job. And Honorable Speaker, I got the first job. I was paid 11,000 by Kenyatta University. I was excited as an intern. I was wondering where I was going to take all the money that they were paying me. But Honorable Speaker, that is the seed that an intern can get from a ministry, that you can get from a semi-autonomous agency, that you can get from a court where you are given an internship position. And with that, I support the Honorable Lesuda, and I support the good work that was done by the committee. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
No, Honorable Baya, I hate to hold you a bit, because this can't be a KU affair. You know, it can't be a KU affair that was KU, this is KU, this is another KU. Yes, then commit, you will not talk about KU. Then don't talk about KU. Go ahead.
Honorable Speaker, I want to thank you, and I want to contribute to this. Although I graduated in KU in 1996. In KU at 1996, with my first degree. I graduated with my master's KU 2007. So you see, but do I say? Rachel, I used to see Rachel, she was a pretty young girl walking in the corridor. When she was doing public health, master's in public health then. But I want to say this, you know, issues of internship, and I want to thank and congratulate Honorable Lesuda, but I want to say this. You see, I happen to study something called labor economics. Now, labor economics tells you this. There are 3 reasons why you hire an intern. You want to train the intern to become a better person. And probably that's why KU hired Rachel. Okay. But there could be another reason. You want to hire the intern so that he can work for you at a lower pay, which is exploitation. Then you can actually hire an intern because you want to fill a gap. This country needs to understand why they are hiring interns. Are we hiring interns because we want them to work for us at a lower rate and give them the same job as the person employed? Or do we want to train these Kenyans to be better workers? And because looking at the philosophy of the internship in this country, you see that we want to solve an employment problem using interns. And that is the wrong way. I cannot be hired as a teacher and I teach 33 lessons in a week, same as the person who is permanent and pensionable teaching 33 lessons a week, and then you are paying him money because a higher level, and you're paying me at a higher level, and yet we're doing the same job, and you're calling me an intern, and you're calling the other one a teacher. That is unfair in labor management. It's unfair. So what we have in this country is a convoluted system that people do not understand. If as a Kenya we are saying, we want to use people to give them jobs to do because we do not have enough money to pay people, then explain it to the people so that they understand. I have been given this job as an intern to help the country because they do not have enough money to hire the right people at the correct salaries. But today, to have a teacher, a professionally trained teacher who has graduated and is waiting for the job market, and to give him a job and say, you're an intern. But when I walk into the school, I do not work as an intern, I work as a full-time teacher. It is exploitation. It should not happen. So we need to make our decision within the realms of labor economics, not to just want to misuse people because we want to fill in a gap. So the declaration must be made so that when you are given a job as an intern, as a JSS intern or an intern, it should be explained to you. As an intern, I have to work under someone who should supervise me. But I should not work more than the person who is supervising me. And you're telling me I'm an intern and this other guy is a full teacher and is paid. And I'm expected to produce the same results as my supervisor. Then is this internship or is this underemployment? We need to understand that. Is this internship that we're giving Kenyans, or we are underemploying them because we do not have the resources? And that is why we will have these labor issues. Just as people will go on strike and say we are paid lowly. But at what time did people start deciding how much money they'll be paid as interns? But because they have realized they're not interns, they are full-time teachers, now they're coming up and say, pay us for the work that we're doing, because they are our workers, they are not interns. Honorable Speaker, we need to have economists in Treasury who do their work. We have to have economists in ministries do their work, because I believe that every ministry in this country has an economist who looks at things from that perspective and makes decisions and say, let's go this way. So that even when a decision is made at cabinet, we need to give people their real titles and their real job descriptions, not misusing titles. Intern, you're an intern doctor, you're an intern teacher, you're an intern agricultural officer. But these are the people who actually work. They will demand higher pay. And when they demand higher pay, it is within their right, because they're not being used as, they are not being trained as interns. They are actually employed to do the work. So, Honorable Speaker, even as Nesula tables this, I would like to see, as we come to the third reading and the community of the whole, a proper definition of who an intern is. Because if you have a law to say, this is an intern, but this intern should have paternity leave, this intern should have maternity leave, this intern should have these allowances, is that an intern? That cannot be an intern. It cannot be an intern. The definition of an intern is within the labor law. And it is clear. This is an understudy of someone. And it should be given certain benefits as an intern. But when we want to call interns and put them at the same level as people who have been employed as workers, we are going to exploit Kenyans using a law that we are passing in this house. That's what we will do. And we'll have a lot of labor issues. So I want to say in this parliament, let interns be interns. And when you do not use interns to do the job for which the supervisor is supposed to do. Do not say this is an intern teacher and give him a full load and there's no one supervising him. That is a full-time teacher. Pay him the salary of a full-time teacher, not as an intern. And if as a country we cannot manage to do that, then let's call an intern because he's doing the job of an intern, and let's call this is a full-time person on the job because he's a full-time person. So while I support you, this law, we need to relook at it within. I believe that when Nesula went to KBC, she went there as an intern She didn't go there to do a full-time job of someone. And she was helped to grow. And she grew to be the lady that we know because she was an intern and she was helped through the steps. And she was not given a full load. She was properly supervised, properly trained, properly handheld, and she get to the level that she is. And that's where she is. But to transform interns or trying to create jobs by telling these people, you're interns now, you're working. I know at what level an intern should be an intern and when that intern should graduate to be a full-time worker. So let's spare young people. Rachel was an intern. When you're given a job at KU as what are they called, tutor, graduate assistant. Yes, you cannot be paid, you cannot do the same job of a professor. She was a graduate assistant. She used to carry books. She used to wipe tables. She used to ensure notes are done. She used to come to the lecture room and sit there and listen to the professor. Because she was a graduate assistant, she was an intern. A properly done intern program. And she graduated to what she is. But these interns that we are saying they are interns, what are they doing? They're not being trained. They're just being used to do work. So let's look at this policy carefully so that we do the right thing for this country. We do not burn out young people by giving them full load of work, and yet we are saying they are interns. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Very well said. But let's give them maternity leave if they become pregnant. Let's not deny them that. This chance will now go to the Secretary General of the Civil Servants Union, the Honorable Member for Nyatike, Honorable Odege.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. And you'll allow me to first congratulate the mover of the bill, because what she has brought before us here today is very timely. And I would say this is what has been ailing our country so far. In fact, I would say I was a witness in KBC, and I can confirm what the Honorable Member is saying is true, because I used to be a customer in KBC. I used to attend a program at 6 a.m. in the morning, and I could find her on duty seated there. So whatever she is presenting in the House here is not only for public consumption, but it's true. I can confirm here today. The issue of internship in the public service, let us not confuse the issue of internship with the issue of pay. It will make us lose the good idea which has been brought before us by the Honorable Member. First, when we talk about internship, I would suggest that this House would support what has been tabled before us here, and even if possible, we make it mandatory for all universities to undergo mandatory internship in the public service. Some of us who had an opportunity to work in the public service, I can authoritatively say here in this House today that when you meet somebody who has grown in the public service and you meet them together with somebody from the private sector, you'll see the difference. The real training in this country is gotten in the public service. So if we deny our young professionals an opportunity to access training in the public service, we are killing this nation. You'll agree with me that all of us who underwent school program, when you are employed, you'll realize you learn again on the job. You don't come from college or school when you are a fully trained professional. The professionalism you'll get when you get an opportunity to sit on the job and be trained on that job. So if we deny our youth an opportunity to get this from the public service, we are killing this nation, and we are denying our youth an opportunity to be better professionals. And again, to make it worse, when we are advertising jobs, we ask these new professionals for experience. Where do we expect them to get experience if we don't give them an opportunity to access facilities in the public service for their training and for their exposure, for them to be the better professionals in this country? So what I wanted to suggest, before we go to monetary issues, we should ensure that we avail opportunities for all professionals to access training in the public service, and if possible, we make it mandatory so that we don't discriminate others not to get such kind of an opportunity to access services. On monetary issues, when we talk about the work done, that opportunity can be given room to be negotiated. Each and every profession can get an opportunity to negotiate, and we give the Public Service Commission, Parliamentary Service Commission, Police Service Commission, and Judicial Service Commission to come up with the job worth of that intern, and we make them be paid. When you look at what's happening currently in the country, it's very unfortunate because we have reached a level where we used to see workers going on strike, now we see interns going on strike, which means we have failed to fix an issue which is ailing our country. That's why now interns are taking it onto the streets to demand for their rights, because we are sitting on that right of theirs. When again you look at the professions we have in this country, there are some professionals who are not able to come out and air their grievances, and they are suffering in silence. Let's talk about accountants. Let's talk about agricultural officers. Let's talk of these are the silent professionals. They are not also not comfortable, but because they don't have an opportunity to come together and air their views, we think they are comfortable because they are not on the streets the way JSS teachers were. So if you are fixing the issue of interns, let us make it broader and ensure that everybody who has trained in this country is given an opportunity and fairness wherever they do their practice. But if we now allow all these strikes to go on, like now, we have clinical officers on the streets. One of the issues they're talking about, interns. We had JSS on the streets. One of the issues, interns. We had the doctors on the streets. One of the issues, interns. And now we have some professions who are not able to go to the streets. And those who can represent them and make them also be comfortable is this house. So let us use this opportunity given to us by this bill and fix all the issues related to workplace when it comes to internship, be made in a way whereby even if you don't go on strike, even if you don't go outside there and make noise, your interest is catered for and your safety is also catered for. So on money, the money can be negotiated. But on internship, let us make this opportunity available for all professionals, and we make them get this training so that we have a country where we are nurturing those needed professions and we make them possible to work for this country. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you very much, Member for Nyatike. Honorable members seated in the public gallery this morning, we have students from Kisayani Secondary School, Motomo Sub-County in Kitui South constituency. So those are students from my constituency. I would like to welcome them. Monge Junior School, Chuka Igamba Ngombe, Tharaka-Nithi County. And Brayton International School from Mavoko constituency in Machakos County. You are welcome to the National Assembly to observe proceedings of the House. And in line with that, honorable members, I would like to give this opportunity to the Honorable Mary Emase to welcome these students. Please welcome the 3 schools, including the ones from my constituency. Honorable Emase.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for this opportunity. From the onset, I want to take this opportunity to welcome all the students in the Speaker's gallery and who have managed to get the opportunity to tour Parliament and also to witness proceedings on the floor of this House. Honorable Speaker, in a very special way, allow me to welcome the students from Brighton International School and all the teachers led by Frederick Yongo. It is one of the best schools we have in Machakos County, that is Mavoko. And I have not seen my MP here. I would have given him an opportunity to. Madam Speaker, as a parent from Brighton International School, I'm very proud to see our daughters and sons from that school in Parliament today. And I just want to give a word of encouragement to all the students present here today that work hard. If you remain focused, the sky is the limit. All of you will achieve your dreams. At one time in our lives, we were smartly dressed like you are today. Some of us did not get an opportunity to visit Parliament. So you can be a doctor if you want to be a doctor. You can be a legislator and be on this floor sometime in future legislating for this nation. You can be an engineer, but you need to work hard because there's no shortcut to success. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. And if you allow me to add my voice to the bill on...
You'll do it at a later time.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Welcome. The Honorable Beatrice Elachi.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I also rise to support this bill and to really appreciate the Honorable Naisula for really coming in at the right time, at a time when I know the country is wondering with all our young people who we've seen from the streets, starting from the doctors, then we came to the teachers of JSS. Very sad, because when you start a program in a country like CBC, and then you have those who are supposed to bring the foundation, and they are the ones on the streets, then as a country you have to question yourself. You have to ask, what is the real issue? But having said that, Madam Speaker, I also want to just look at the memorandum of objects of this bill and to appreciate that when you look at it, I think we've borrowed so much in Article 10 of the Constitution, the national principles. And we are talking, when we talk of interns in the country, we're talking of fairness, equity, because it's just within that we are hoping you have a framework that will ensure every child in this country is able to work within government. Madam Speaker, when I worked in government just a few years ago, and I worked in public service, and the most unfortunate thing, as we see as rumbling, is that I know within the public service, many people are about to retire. And yet we did not take so much this thing of internship to ensure you can be able to train now your young people to come in and take over what they are supposed to do for the country. And so you find in some of the sectors and dockets within public service, Madam Speaker, roughly 38 senior officers. I think they have now left, Madam Speaker. And you can imagine now young people are supposed to take over. Who have mentored them? How do they take over? And that's why you find yourself with a public service that sometimes you feel very disappointed. Why is it that we don't have? Yet we have the best, Madam Speaker, in terms of skills, in terms of people who can do the best for the country. We have them in public service. And so, Madam Speaker, I want to just say this, as I support this, that one of the things that the Honorable Naisula is bringing in, which we have to really help our young people to understand the objectives of this act. That one, it preserves human dignity as set out under Article 19 of the Constitution. It enhances youth development and employability by creating clear linkages between your education, your training, and work. I was an intern for Professor Wanjiko Kabera, and I remember we were with Daisy. And at that time, we were interns in a program that was there for civic education. And I remember the way Prof mentored us. Yes, in a very tough way. And I want to tell young people, there is no internship that will be simple. There is no internship on a silver platter. Then you won't get employed. And also, always remember in the laws of employment that there is probation. So even our interns of JSS, I don't know whether they understand, there is probation for 6 months. And the employer has a right to employ or not to employ. You see, sometimes we are talking here and we put in politics, and we forget these are people who are going to mentor and to teach the next future leaders of the country. And so we have to be very clear as leaders, as parents, that you cannot. You are on probation. Go and read your letter of intern. What did you agree with the employer? So when the time comes, do not use it in a political way. Remember, you are not in a mob when you are being employed. You are employed you as an individual person. You came alone to ask for that interview, and you were employed alone. So let us not also make it very political until we destroy the whole structure, because this is a new foundation for our children and for the future of Kenya. And the other thing the Honorable Lesuda brings in for them to understand is ensure a well-structured and coordinated internship program. I agree with Honorable Mbaya. Where we are going wrong is when you decide an intern who is supposed to do 25% of the job is now doing 100%. That is where we have gone wrong with this structure of teachers. And now they believe they have worked as teachers, and I won't be ashamed to talk about it. I went to my school speaker, and I won't say the name. I met my young interns and the teachers, even the teachers who have been there for a while. And when I looked at the staff room, I felt like crying, because this is your staff room. You cannot tell me you have just finished your tea and everything is on the table, all the eggs are just there, and you are seated. You are the teacher. What will the student then do? So I just want to say it has to come. It starts with your ethical. It starts with your moral. Then it goes now for you to become the teacher. But I want to also now alert teachers. We are on a digital platform. And I went to Mombasa in a school. A teacher is in one class, 3 classrooms are using a digital platform, they are with their teacher. So awaken yourself. They will reach a point, because of technology, we don't want to see our students crying every day. There's no TSC teacher. We shall improvise and find a way of teaching children, and you'll be the losers. So I want to say, Madam Speaker, for me, I believe if I never went to school, if I never found my teacher, Machete, my English teacher, today I wouldn't be who I am today. So a teacher, my lecturer, today, I am proud when I meet them. But when I look at our children, I wonder whether they will even embrace their own teacher. And I also want to tell the teachers, I have my girl who comes and says, Miss said. I say, what is Miss? Until the teacher said, you call me Miss. I want to tell them, that's where we have missed all these things. Because the student now realizes you're just a Miss. So that value we had in terms of a foundation of who brings me to be who I am today is sort of eroding, and we are just now going back, and we will have to have challenges of how we serve our own people. Yes, it's a calling, just the way other things are calling, because sometimes you find the work you do is beyond measurable. Nobody can pay you that. But if you can mold a child and bring it to us in Bunge and we become who we are today, then I believe they are there, and we must be proud of them and we must celebrate them. But these interns of ours must understand there is a role you play. You know, everywhere you're employed, 6 months probation, you can be removed. And even if you go to court, the courts will understand that that's how it works. Number 2, nowadays we have the law in public service. Always remember, before you run to court, you are told use the mechanisms that are there, that have been put in place to deal with. And when you're an intern, you have your letter, you have what you have agreed, you have signed on it, Madam Speaker. They must understand. As I finalize, Madam Speaker, I just want to tell Honorable Naisula what you have done for the country today, and I'm hoping that many And I'm hoping public service will also come in to see whether there are a few things they will want us to add in. They have to come and meet Honorable Naisula so that we package it properly in our third read, in our whole committee of the whole, to make sure that indeed that intern can get productivity, that intern is supposed to increase self-awareness, that intern is supposed to understand motivation needs, that intern must learn to excel in ambiguity. With those few remarks, Madam Speaker, I beg to support.
Thank you very much. Honorable members, as you may be aware, we did not put a time limit for this bill. So it's 10 minutes. If you choose to speak for 5 minutes, then all of you on the screen will be able to speak. But that is your choice. Honorable members, I would like to give a chance to the Honorable Abdul Aharo, member for Mandera South.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to make my contribution on this very important bill. From the onset, I must say that I support this bill, the Public Service Internship Bill by Honorable Naisula Lesuda of Samburu West. This bill is timely and most welcome. Honorable Speaker, I'll start by saying that Article 55 of the Constitution provides that the state shall take measures including affirmative action, programs to ensure that youth have access to service such as education, training, and employment, and also have opportunities to participate in socio-economic spheres. Honorable Speaker, Kenya currently does not have a robust law on internship. That is why this bill by Honorable Lesuda is very timely and most welcome, and it is going to cure some of the problems that we have had in this sector. Honorable Speaker, it is a fact that most private and public firms do not pay interns, and many interns struggle on a daily basis as they attend to their duties of internship in those public and private institutions. Some of those institutions pay out of their own volition, and this is the reason why we must have a legal framework to make sure that these private and public institutions are governed by provisions of law to be able to support these interns as they do their internship. So this brings us, before I go to that, Honorable Speaker, even the National Employment Authority Act only talks of, issues of placement of interns in public and public institutions, but does not address the question of the stipends or payment for these interns. That's why this bill is very important. And this brings me to the question of who are these interns? What are interns? According to the online Oxford Dictionary, the position intern is the position of a student or trainee who works in an organization, sometimes without pay, in order to gain work experience or satisfy requirements for qualification. This is the definition of interns. Honorable Speaker, as it has been said by other contributors before me, these interns have also been misused. Apart from not being paid, they've also been misused. For example, some have been used, these interns who are actually professionals, like has been mentioned before. Some are teachers, some are doctors, some are lawyers, some are engineers, and some are technologists. But they have been misused and reduced to photocopy assistants, messengers, storekeepers, office cleaners, errand boys and girls. And that is why this bill is very important, because it gives dignity to the whole question around internship. The bill addresses the question of the welfare of the interns, the matter around monthly pay, the questions around sick leave, especially in Article 10, Section 10 and Section 11. It talks about the question of personal accident insurance cover, And of course, the question around subsistence, so that these interns, when they go and work in those institutions, public or private, are able to be supported by some small stipend for their food, for fare, and for airtime for their phones. Honorable Speaker, the bill also moves to address the question of the working conditions for these interns, and it covers interns not working only in the national government institution, but it also covers interns working in the county governments. Honorable Speaker, the bill also addresses the question of duration of the internship, up to 12 months. And we have been given the best practices, like, for example, in South Africa, which has a similar duration of internship, which is long enough to be able to give a student satisfying requirements for their qualification or trying to gain some work experience to be able to interact with the nature of the work they're supposed to do when they get full-time employment. And most importantly, the bill also addresses the question of ensuring that public institutions budget. You know, they have provisions for budgeting for the resources that are going to be used for improving the working conditions and the welfare of these interns. Otherwise, we don't have any provisions now to compel or even to encourage public institutions to budget as we go. Right now, we are going through a budget cycle, but because there's no that provision in law, there's no framework that compels or encourages public institutions to be able to plan and budget for these interns. So most institutions never plan, never budget for these interns, and that is why we never have resources for these interns. With those few remarks, Honorable Speaker, I say I strongly support this bill, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to contribute. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The Honorable Esther Passaris, member for Nairobi City County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I stand to support my colleague, Honorable Naisula, for bringing this Public Service Internship Bill, Bill number 63 of 2022, and the Committee of Labor for their work into making sure it comes to this stage. Madam Speaker, you know, this country has an unemployment rate of over 30%. And that means over 10 million Kenyans are out there either unemployed or underemployed. Without the structures that we need to have on internships and without the legal laws to support it, we will end up having a lot of underemployed citizens. And underemployed citizens will not be able to actually effectively look after their families. When we come up with a bill such as this, we're putting legal frameworks. We're making sure that the monthly stipend is actually decent enough for them to be able to sustain their families. We're making sure that the programs that you have within the various public institutions are well tailored to make sure that if there's going to be an absorption of these interns, that they are going to be able to do the work that they're doing. I know that the Teacher Service Commission has an internship program of 2 years where they guarantee absorption of everyone. And I think it's important, you know, when I heard Honorable Elachi speak, she mentioned that you're employed as an individual. You know, I think as a country, we have two areas that really have done us good, but they're also our undoing. One of the areas is that we go and rush to court with everything. And so we actually paralyze counties and governments from performing duties. And then in the end, people ask, where are the services? It's because they've been derailed. I remember having a conversation with Governor Sakaja of Nairobi and asking, what are we going to do about the garbage collection? Somebody had gone to court and stopped the contract that they were about to enter with somebody who had won the bid to be able to help us sort out our garbage through recycling programs. So when we go to court or when we demonstrate, sometimes we demonstrate and then we injure ourselves. I look at Teacher Service Commission right now because that's the hot topic. And they had a number of interns. Normally they absorb the interns over 2 years. But I believe that they have a collective bargaining agreement to that effect. But I believe now that we're going to have the law that says the intern should not be more than 6 to 12 months, then that collective bargaining agreement will have to be renegotiated so that we are able to then absorb them in 12 months. I think to have an intern for 2 years is actually not right. And government should not allow for interns for over 2 years. We should be able to then look at, if we are going to absorb all the interns that we take in the education sector, then we have to make sure we provide the necessary budgets. And how do these budgets come? It will not be 100% budget because you will have some teachers that are retiring. So we need to make sure that the money for interns is strictly used, and the monitoring and evaluation for intern budgets, which I understand this year's budget is going to be over 2 billion. We have to make sure that when we budget for interns, it is used for interns. It is not used for any other program within the public sector. I like that we will provide for sick leave, we will provide for maternity, we will provide for paternity. Because if we don't provide for that, then when an intern wants to be absorbed and she goes for the interview and she's pregnant, then you will find they will be looked at as a burden. But if it is provided for in law, then there will be no discrimination of anyone who is pregnant. And then illnesses catches at any point. You can walk into an interview absolutely healthy, and 6 months down the line you're diagnosed with something. So I think we have to have a humane way of dealing with our employees, whether permanent or under intern programs. Now, when it comes to the country at large, I think there is an important need to do a census of our population, because that will also inform where we allocate the most budgets from the 2 billion budget that we have for interns. When we look at our population and we realize that we have the number of unemployed teachers is way higher than the number of unemployed doctors or nurses, then we know that the absorption of interns in the education sector or in the medical sector has to be, the budgets have to be given relative to the amount of people that are unemployed. If we do not conduct a census on the number of people that we have unemployed in our country and the qualifications that they bear and the experiences that they bear, then we are not able to effectively provide the budgets to actually grow the specific industry. I believe that we need to budget based on the training of our population, and we also need to guide our population on where we have overtrained personnel and we need more people in a specific sector. I remember there was a time when Singapore was looking at a certain area of their country as they were progressing, and they realized that that particular area, not many people were buying into the development and the growth and prosperity of Singapore. And what did they realize? That particular area, the people were professionals, were either lawyers or doctors, accountants. So what they did is they made sure that they made that into a hub to provide those services. So we need to be able to think forward and think of how we place resources. We place resources based on the population. We inform the population. There's no need, when you have probably 2 million teachers that are unemployed and our absorption rate is 20%, that we encourage more training of teachers. We need to then look at them and counsel them. And counseling for future career prospects is very important. And as long as a country we don't do that, then we will be taking interns that we can't absorb. Now, having said that, we also have to realize that if the government can only employ X amount, then we need to figure out how are we going to work with the private sector? How are we going to make it lucrative for the private sector to buy into the internship program that the government wants to have? What are the incentives that we're giving the private sector to absorb our interns? Because, having 10 million citizens out there unemployed, and I guess when the government is looking for bilateral contracts to try and export labor, it's also recognizing that our absorption rate of the unemployed has been actually dwindling. So we also have to make sure that as we do this budget and pass the budget and the finance bill, we need to make sure that as a country we are going to protect the jobs that we have and the corporates that we have. Because if we don't protect the jobs that we have and the corporates that we have and the manufacturing industry and the financial industry, then we are going to have people moving into neighboring countries. And when people start moving into neighboring countries, what does that mean with the COMESA agreement? Is that we will become consumers, our people will not have jobs. So we need to find that balance. And I pray that we find that balance, because if we don't find that balance, then we're going to have a shrink, and even more shrinking unemployment. We will not be able to absorb the interns, and we will not be able to basically attract corporate investors and manufacturers, and even our own Kenyan manufacturers right now are looking for where can they make the most money. So I think there is an importance for the people that economically advise the government on how we're going to go forward, to actually start taking off their blinders and thinking outside the box. Because when you think you know it all, you could be actually creating problems that will not only affect us now, but will affect us for generations to come. Because if an industry closes down or an industry moves out of this country, to bring it back will be impossible. So I think we should have a high retention rate of whatever we have that is creating employment opportunities for our people. All in all, I believe that this country can only go forward when we move together, when we're sensitized about the needs of our people, when we listen. And that's why God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth. It's important that we listen. And I pray that we start listening now, because Kenyans out there are suffering. And right now, you know, when we talk about 2 billion shillings in the intern budget, it's because we will need to collect that money. But then also, those interns out there, remember that when we budget, we're also trying to provide for you. All in all, the day we deal with corruption is the day the prosperity of this nation will be restored, re-engineered, and everyone will become rich. Thank you for allowing me this opportunity, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Member for Nairobi County. The Honorable Michael Mushira, Member for Oljororo.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I rise to support the Public Service Internship Bill of 2022 as sponsored by the member for Saburu West, Honorable Naisura Lesuda. And Madam Speaker, let me start by applauding the member for bringing this bill at the right time. Madam Speaker, every year we appropriate money for the internship program. And Madam Speaker, we do not have a legal framework to run this program. We do it on the basis of the goodwill for the current government. But Madam Speaker, we know that goodwill alone is not good enough. The goodwill needs to be backed up by the necessary legal framework, and this is what this bill is trying to do. Madam Speaker, we've had court's pronouncement on this internship program, especially in the JSS program, where the court nullified the internship program because there exists no legal framework for this program. Madam Speaker, this bill will try to sort out this. Madam Speaker, we also know that the basis on which the TSC engaged the interns, it was actually not internship program. It was employment. Because, Madam Speaker, there's no way you can, the way my understanding on internship is that you are working under a mentor. But on this JSS program, there was nobody mentoring these interns. So, Madam Speaker, let it be clear that what the TSC did on JSS interns, it was not internship programs. It was employment, because there was nobody to mentor the interns who are employed by the TSC. Having said that, Madam Speaker, we all know that the importance of this program, because the purpose of internship is to ensure that the fresh graduates, the graduates who have graduated fresh from the university, are able to acquire the necessary skills and experience to enhance their employability. Madam Speaker, the civil service, our civil service as it is the best trained and skilled civil service, and therefore it is the best that our interns can learn from it. Madam Speaker, the internship also ensures that the students are inculcated with values and ethos in our civil service. And Madam Speaker, it's my hope that our civil servants will inculcate the positive values to our interns. Madam Speaker, this bill also enumerates the responsibilities and the entitlements of the interns. When an intern joins the civil service or the public service, it will be clear what his or her responsibility is, as well what his or her entitlement is in terms of stipends. And Madam Speaker, on the issue of stipends, I would wish probably if this can be clear and we enumerate the minimum stipends so that we avoid exploitation, just like we have the minimum wage bill. It's also important that we have the minimum stipend that the interns in the public service will be earning. Madam Speaker, the issue of course, the entitlements like the sick leave. Madam Speaker, there's no way that we can deny the interns sick leave just because they are not permanent and pensionable, and also the issue of the paternity and maternity leave, and the issue of personal accident insurance cover is included in this bill. Madam Speaker, also the issue of the bill also handles the issue of disciplinary procedures. Once the intern joins the public service, he or she is bound by the rules and regulations of that government entity, and once he or she breaks the rules, he or she will be subjected to the necessary disciplinary procedures. Again, Madam Speaker, we could see that the TSC, because there was probably no legal framework, was not able to take the striking interns into the proper disciplinary procedures. Madam Speaker, this bill also stipulates the ways of recruitment of interns to ensure that it is transparency, to ensure that there is accountability, to ensure that there is fairness, and that every intern from every corner of this country has the same probability of being absorbed into the public service as intern as any other. And therefore, it is our expectation that we pass this bill. Once any recruitment takes place, it will reflect the gender and regional balance, and it will not be skewed. And the basis of recruitment will not be on who you know or the basis of nepotism, and reduce corruption in terms of recruitment of the internship. Madam Speaker, I also support the issue of incentives to the private entities, and at the same time, if there is a way that we should make it mandatory for every government entity to absorb interns at any particular time, so that, because the idea, Madam Speaker, is to absorb as many as possible, if not 100%. And therefore, the issue of making it mandatory for every government entity to absorb the interns should be looked at. And finally, Madam Speaker, I also support the issue of timelines, such that it's not too short for the interns to absorb the necessary skills and experience that it is required, but also it's not too long, such that we have career interns. So the issue of 1 year is good enough. At least 1 year, every intern will have absorbed the necessary skills. And then after 1 year, you are fit to go and utilize your skills in the other fields so that we have vacancies to absorb other interns. Madam Speaker, with those few remarks, I support.
The Honorable James Nyikal, member for Seme. Dr. Nyikal.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to contribute to this motion. And let me start by congratulating Honorable Lesuda for bringing this very important bill at this time. Madam Speaker, this is an extremely important bill at this time. The issue of internship, and because of lack of a legal framework and because of unemployment amongst the young people, actually has been used to exploit young people who are qualified. And therefore, even the opportunities for taking part in internship has not been in any way regulated. There has been no equity. So this bill then brings in some legal framework. There has been some legal framework in relation to professional regulatory authorities, but it has been limited. And even that has now been confused with the general internship, and that was the crux of the matter in the recent doctor strike. Therefore, Madam Speaker, I support this bill because it actually addresses very important issues in this matter. One is the definition of an intern. It actually takes a fairly good definition of an intern, and it brings out that you can actually have 3 people who are doing internship. Those who are doing it during their training, and those who have actually finished their training, and those who actually require it as for registration in professional bodies. And so those must be taken into consideration, because that's where the problem is. Because you have some people also, even earlier than that, who as part of their training need some exposure to industry before they do the final examinations and therefore subsequent graduation. Those are also internship. So this bill has actually attempted to do that. If you look at clause 3, that has been taken care of. Again, it is the objective of the internship. Why are we putting young people through internship? Colleagues have actually indicated whether we want them to the land, we want them as part of our workforce, we want them because they need to be trained. If those have also been actually taken care of in this bill, if you look at clause 3. The other important thing is the period and structure of training. Madam Speaker, there's been an attempt in the definition between 3 months and 1 year. But I think we will have to look at, particularly in cases of professional requirements, they will have to be involved to determine how long the period should be and what is the structure of training. Because if you have bodies like the Medical Practitioner Dentist Council, the Engineers Institute, the Board of Architects and Quantity Surveyors, BORACs, the Law Society of Kenya, and this Council for Legal Education, those bodies will require very clear time periods. They will require clear structures of training and clear structures of mentorship. For example, in the medical profession, the interns actually have to do specific, undertake specific activities which they must exhibit competence in during that period. I think even in engineering, I think that is required, so that you actually have structured ways, you have logbooks that are actually in place that they have to fill to show that they have actually undertaken that. And therefore, the other issue that has come is the relationship that is important, is the relationship of the internship, of interns during this period. Madam Speaker, this is extremely important, and this is what actually led to a lot of exploitation. When you have interns for exposure, they supernumerary, which means they actually are not part of the workforce, and therefore what they do.
Honorable Dr. Nyikal, I don't know whether it is the phone which is your phone which is interfering with the microphone, or it is someone else's phone.
Maybe it's okay. So, Madam Speaker, the responsibility of an intern, the assignment that they are given during the period, are they supernumerary, which means there are people who are actually doing the job and the intern is tagging along with them so that they get the exposure, or the intern is actually in a schedule of work in the roster, so that what they do is actually part of the work and part of the schedule for the day's work and part of the load that the institution does on daily basis. If that is the case, then you will realize that is extremely different category, and that is actually where the medical doctor interns are, because they are actually part of the workforce, so they have a responsibility. They look after patients. They are in the wards. They undertake surgeries where they are competently, and so that they are actually working. And if they were in the private sector, they would actually be earning income for the institutions where they are working. And that also, another important issue that comes with that is the legal responsibility. If, like in the professional areas, they are undertaking these activities, like in the medical profession, if they're actually looking after people, they're actually doing surgeries, do they have a legal responsibility? If something goes wrong, now who takes responsibility? At least in the legal profession, in the medical profession, I know they have a registration, an interim registration, which makes sure that they are registered, and they even have insurance, which, if anything goes wrong, the people who are involved are covered. And these are extremely important. And Madam Speaker, it's also important when you have the intern, what is their position in the structure of the organization? Are they just another person in the organization? Are there clearly stated responsibilities that they have? I can tell you the medical, the intern doctors are part of any working hospital where you have the intern as the first on call, the medical officer as the second on call, and the consultant as the third on call. So that in a structured institution, if they are not there, then the institution is not working. That is a completely different situation where there are people who are working as supernumerary, who are working, tagging along with others. Again, those, we have to have a structure. And I've noted in the bill that there have been attempts to do this, like in clause 2, even the role of the supervisor and the mentor has actually been stated. So that is extremely important. And the third thing, the fourth thing, Madam Speaker, is remuneration. That will depend what is their role. If they are part of the structure of the organization, if they are part of the structure of the workforce, if they are given responsibility. Madam Speaker, can I tell you from my personal experience, as an intern, one weekend, I worked from Friday morning up to Sunday evening with very little time for sleep, even for meals, and actually taking care of several wards at the same time. Now, you will not say that that is supernumerary. And so when, as people have been indicated, during the strike, the interns were asking for 206,000. This is somebody who is working. So that is that, as opposed to people who are on supernumerary. So that I am happy has been taken care of here. Madam Speaker, it's also important that when we have them and they're working in industry, how does it relate to the law, the labor laws? What are they entitled to? Look at the issue of the JSS teachers. They were there, they were called interns, but these are teachers who are qualified, teachers who have TSC registrations, but then we call them interns. Now, were they subject to the labor laws? Now we are dismissing them. What is protecting them? So these are areas that we must look at. And finally, Madam Speaker, unless we have this law in place, and I beg my colleagues that we pass it, even with amendments, there will be a great danger of exploitation. This is for the public service, but it must also give guidelines, and we may need another law to take care of internship in the private sector. With that,
thank you very much, Dr. Nyekao. The Honorable Johanna Ngeno, member for Emurua Dikiri.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for this opportunity also to support this bill, the bill on the internship. Madam Speaker, I wish to thank the member for Samburu, Mheshimiwa Shemeji, for bringing this particular bill, Lesuda. Congratulations for remembering those young people outside there who are suffering and trying to find their way to the economy of this country. Madam Speaker, before I raise some few issues which I think are very pertinent on this particular bill, Madam Speaker, I wish to condemn also the action by the TSC and the authority concerned on the interns, on the teachers who are working as interns in this republic, and maybe the conditions they were serving under were not favorable to them. And instead of the authorities concerned looking into those matters, listening to them, they decided to arbitrarily dismiss them without cause. Madam Speaker, these are Kenyans, these are young people, very young people who are growing in a society. They are struggling people. And therefore, I wish to condemn and wish to ask them to reverse that situation. I know the Committee on Education have summoned those particular individuals who are concerned to come and answer some few questions. But I think the most immediate action that should be taken by the committee is to ensure that the arbitrary dismissal of those interns is reversed without condition. Madam Speaker, many of us who at one point or another finished our colleges, universities, were also involved in this exercise of internship. And we all understand the conditions, we all understand the turmoils, and of course, we also understand the challenges that go with it. And therefore, when we see authorities exploiting our youth arbitrarily, whether it is a private sector, whether it is the government agencies, Madam Speaker, we won't allow because it is wrong and it is illegal. And this one also goes to several other agencies, Madam Speaker, not only TSC. Of course, it is not only on this issue of interns. TSC has always been interdicting many teachers without reason. There was a time I even went there myself to actually question the reason why a certain teacher who was falsely accused, and that case went to court, and the court dismissed that case. But the teacher was never reinstated, Madam Speaker. I don't know what rules, what inhuman rules the TSA are using in dismissing their teachers and interdicting some of them. In fact, that teacher was completely dismissed, not even interdicted. So, Madam Speaker, it is not only TSC, even the police, even the KDF, the mode, the method they are using to arbitrarily dismiss the officers who are working in those particular areas is actually uncalled for. And I think it is high time we look and relook into the rules that surrounds the dismissal and the interdiction of employees in this country. There are labor laws in this country which govern each and every employee or even those interns. But Madam Speaker, I think, and I wish the Labor Committee to relook into the labor law so that people should not be dismissed arbitrarily. People should, in fact, any dismissal should be given, any person who is to be dismissed should be given a fair hearing, both by the department or the agency that is trying to dismiss, and also even up to the level of the courts. Because sometimes the agencies become partisan. The agencies sometimes also become, they behave in a very unruly way. So sometimes people should be allowed to seek further appeal, seek further assistance outside the areas where they serve, so that if it is the police, it should not be a closed case that the police have dismissed a person or KDF has dismissed a person based on their own judgments. They should be allowed to appeal to other avenues or find other avenues where they can be listened to. Madam Speaker, I therefore wish to support this particular bill. Madam Speaker, for unemployed people, youth who just finished maybe universities or colleges, and like what my colleagues have said, when an intern is employed or put in that particular position, they serve, they teach, they work like any other person. And therefore, number one priority should be what kind of payment or what kind of stipend that intern is paid. So that these people are being, and especially, Madam Speaker, these people are being overworked. When you go to schools, they're given a lot of subjects, they're given a lot of students to teach, they're given a lot of lessons to teach, Madam Speaker. Unlike even those ones who have been permanently employed. Therefore, the kind of stipend these particular interns receive must be in tandem with the kind of work they are normally, and the rules should be that it should not be the decision of the body, the agency that is employing these interns or that is actually recruiting the interns, that determines majorly it should be also under the SRC, the stipends or the kind of amount of money to be paid to the interns should also be determined by SRC, Madam Speaker, so that people will not take advantage of these interns, because mostly these are very vulnerable people and sometimes they are not able, they don't have the capacity to negotiate, and therefore this one also should be determined by the SRC. Madam Speaker, I also believe that an intern is a very qualified person to be employed. And I like what the bill says, that the maximum number of months an intern should work is 12 months. Madam Speaker, but the question is, after 12 months, what happens? Because mostly, these are people who are properly qualified to be employed. And Madam Speaker, my main worry is that most of these interns, once they complete the number of months which they are supposed to be working as interns, they go home. There should be an amendment, and I am proposing an amendment, Madam Speaker, to this particular bill, that every intern who has worked as an intern must be employed or confirmed immediately at the conclusion of the number of months that intern is working. Because why, Madam Speaker? If we need interns, for example, in the TSE, if we think we need interns like we did in the previous time, we employed over 36,000 or 30,000 interns. That means there is a shortage of teachers. So if you are going to be using the interns for only 12 months and you dismiss them, what does that tell you? What are you going to do to the positions that were vacant before you bring in the interns? That therefore, Madam Speaker, and not only on TSE or any other area where there are interns, it means there is a shortage of employment. There is a shortage of employees in those particular agencies. And therefore, I wish to be included in this bill that any intern that is put to work immediately on completion of the intern period should be confirmed and employed permanently by the state agency or the department where those interns were employed, so that we can assure them of employment. And because, Madam Speaker, you know, even when you look at the the TSC, the education in our country, the Ministry of Education in our country, we lack so many teachers. When you look at when you go to several schools in this country, you find there are no teachers. Every school is lacking almost 5, 10 teachers. Why can't we employ these interns permanently? So, Madam Speaker, I wish to support, but I also wish to indicate that let us not misuse, let us not exploit these interns. They are our children, they are our daughters, they are our sons, brothers, and sisters. Let us not.
Thank you very much, Member for Emurua Dikir. Honorable members, seated in the Speaker's Gallery this afternoon, we have students from Precious Blood Riruta Girls High School from Dagoretti North Constituency, Nairobi County. You are welcome to the National Assembly to observe the proceedings of the House. Your Member of Parliament has already spoken, the Honorable Beatrice Elachi, and therefore I give a chance to the Honorable Mwalimu Peter Ocheng, the member for Kibra, to welcome the students.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. On behalf of my colleague, Ms. Elachi, you know she was also a speaker in another house. I want to welcome Precious Blood Girls. And for the benefit of this house, this is one of the top schools in this country. It is a leading light in many, many exams before. Precious Blood has become a top school. And now that they are here, most of them, and quite a number of members of parliament, some of them have passed through the school. I must say that this is a good opportunity for them to come and see how this house runs, and in the future, when they join us, they will also be members of parliament. Feel welcome to this house and know that this is the epitome of successful people in the country. You are welcome. Your member of parliament is one of those who are always here. And I know she works very hard. I am aware that she's putting up a very good gate for your school. And very, very soon she's coming to hand over the gate. So we need to encourage the ladies and give them opportunity just like men to be with us. Feel welcome. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. But before I sit down, please allow me to say just one thing on this motion of internship.
Thank you very much for what you have done. I will not allow you to go to the motion.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome. The Honorable Timothy Toroitich, member for Marakwet West.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me an opportunity to contribute on this very important motion. Honorable Speaker, from the onset, I wish to congratulate and thank Honorable Lisuda, the MP for Samburu West, for such a progressive bill that she has brought before this House. Honorable Speaker, this is a bill that will give us a proper legal and institutional framework insofar as interns or internship is concerned in this country. Honorable Speaker, for far too long, we've had a lacuna in law. We've had a gap in law in respect to internships, and I believe that this bill will cure those gaps, will cure that lacuna, so that we have a comprehensive legal framework to cover that particular gap that we have in law. Honorable Speaker, internship in this country has not been addressed for quite a long period of time. And we have left interns to the hands of institutions that do not follow a specific legislation to be able to protect the interests of interns. Honorable Speaker, it is time that these interns are dignified pursuant to this law that we shall be able to debate in this House and possibly pass. And I call upon the members of this House that when the time comes, we pass this law so that we dignify our interns. Honorable Speaker, recently there was a court ruling which was before the Employment and Labor Relations Court in the High Court at Milimani. Honorable Speaker, that case was between an NGO called Forum for Good Governance and Human Rights versus TSC and two others. Honorable Speaker, the premise of that ruling, the substratum of that ruling, was that the teacher interns who are employed by the Teacher Service Commission, that the entire process was declared a nullity. Honorable Speaker, if I have read the case, Justice Ongoya had this to say in respect to that case. He said that the respondents, meaning the TSC, have not exhibited statutory, regulatory, or policy arrangements that would entitle the first respondent, TSC, to employ interns. Honorable Speaker, that means that the court was not satisfied that TSC would employ interns without a proper legal and institutional framework. Honorable Speaker, the court further went to say that the commission violated their right to fair labor practice by giving them internship positions that, while they were qualified and possessed teaching licenses. Honorable Speaker, purely it signifies and underscores, underpins the importance of this legislation. If this law was in place, the court would not have declared employment of teacher interns as illegal and unconstitutional. Now that we have such a legal framework, and if it is passed, it is enacted by this House, it means that the issue of teacher interns and all other interns in the public service, then they will have been protected by the law. Honorable Speaker, I am a product of internship. When I completed my postgraduate in law, then thereafter, before you are admitted to the bar, you undergo what you call pupillage under a private law firm, where you are under the tutelage of a senior legal counsel. And therefore, Honorable Speaker, when you go to, after that tutelage, then, or the pupillage, thereafter, you will be able to open a law firm and practice law. So that experience that an intern gets, just like our doctors, that get in those offices, form the basis of an individual who shall serve both the public and the private sector with honor, dignity, and of course, you have the requisite experience when you serve in that office. Honorable Speaker, on the issue of budgeting, so that we avoid a haphazard budgeting process, it is good that we have now this legal framework which will inform the budgeting process in this country, so that when we are budgeting, we have certain money allocated for the purpose of employing, of training interns in this country. Because if we have a lacuna in law where we don't have a specific legislation providing for interns, where we can sit as a House and budget, and we know that this year, for example, in the Department of ICT, in the Ministry of Roads, in the Ministry of Agriculture, we shall absorb a certain number of interns. And, Honorable Speaker, this will also aid in the issue of unemployment in this country, so that we set a minimum pay or a benefit that an intern will get, and regulate the issue of dismissal, the issue of handling teacher interns. If you look, for example, at what TSC did, which I condemn in the strongest terms possible, dismissing interns for picketing, which is their right under the Constitution, then they shall be protected under this regime of law if we pass as a House. So, Honorable Speaker, as I finalize, there is no doubt that this bill, when it's passed by this House, will enhance transparency, accountability, and proper oversight as we pass this legislation. So, Honorable Speaker, so that I give other members time to submit, I support this bill. It is a progressive piece of legislation. When it comes to the second reading, we shall propose certain amendments, but I call upon the members of this House to pass the bill in its entirety, of course, with certain amendments. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you very much. I would like to request the patience of the Honorable Wanyonyi. Give an opportunity to the Honorable Cynthia Muge. As you are aware, she is a breastfeeding mother, and I am actually giving her a chance so that she can speak and leave for that purpose. So please make your contribution.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. You see, the Honorable Renee here says she's potential. And Honorable Speaker, I want to appreciate your consideration, and I wish her the very best so that she can be able to enjoy this particular privilege, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, that speaks a lot about you being a mother and being a very caring leader who considers even the well-being of the young persons that we are raising up. Honorable Speaker, allow me to appreciate the Honorable Naisula Lesuda for this very progressive bill that she has brought to this House. A bill, Honorable Speaker, that seeks to bring sanity and provide and give a structure, Honorable Speaker, to how public service gives an opportunity to people who have gone through training, Honorable Speaker, in school. Honorable Speaker, I want to appreciate every bit of this bill, Honorable Speaker. It is a comprehensive bill, Honorable Speaker, that is not only precise but to the point, Honorable Speaker. It has been able to outline and sort out so many issues, Honorable Speaker, that in the face value, you would think that this is what is happening and it is anchored in law. I appreciate, Honorable Speaker, for thinking and seeing it fit that it should be anchored in law so that we can be able to bring dignity like it has been spelled out in this particular bill, and so that we can be able to protect the rights of the graduates, the young graduates that we have in this country, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, if you have a structure that is anchored in law like this, it will be able to enhance performance and efficiency. Honorable Speaker, it will be seamless and smooth for us to going forward and allow the public service to be able to onboard graduates in different disciplines and fields, Honorable Speaker, to earn and gain experience. Honorable Speaker, many people might ignore the importance of an internship, but it is actually what will deny you a job or give you a job in the near future. Honorable Speaker, if you look at the advertisements for jobs in this country, it actually gives you, a requirement, Honorable Speaker, that says things like 4 years experience or 5 years experience or 3 years experience. Honorable Speaker, if you get an opportunity in a structured manner in a country like Kenya, where you have a provided for 12 months, that is 1 year in internship, Honorable Speaker, you can easily meet the other requirements by finding other places that you can be able to intern. So, Honorable Speaker, this is a very progressive bill. Honorable Speaker, I have an imagination that the transition to working, Honorable Speaker, formally should go progressively. Like you graduate, Honorable Speaker, and then you go for internship. And Honorable Speaker, if I had the powers, Honorable Speaker, I think the professional exams should come after internship. Most of the professional exams, Honorable Speaker, they actually test you on the actual job that you are going to do before they give you the professional license. Honorable Speaker, I'm a physical planner by profession. And before I get a registration license number, I have to go through a professional exam. That professional exam, Honorable Speaker, if you do not get practice, hands-on practice during internship and attachments and whatnot, you will not pass it, Honorable Speaker. And I feel, Honorable Speaker, maybe this particular bill is going to give us that kind of structure that you graduate, you go for internship, and you're able to now proceed to professional training, then you can be able to get licensing, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I look forward to bringing an amendment to this particular bill, and of course I have been in consultation with the bill owner, Honorable Naisula Lesuda. Honorable Speaker, if you look at the advertisements that are given in this country, especially in Kenya, the PSC, they normally have a pinch of discrimination. One of the places that they discriminate, Honorable Speaker, they advertise for internship opportunities, and then they say this is only, or the only people who qualify for this opportunity are people who graduated, say, from 2016 onwards. Honorable Speaker, that is discrimination against the people who graduated earlier in 2020, 2010, 2011, 12, and even the earlier years. Honorable Speaker, these people do not have jobs by choice. They do not have jobs, Honorable Speaker, because they have been hard to come by. So, Honorable Speaker, I look forward to bringing that amendment so that we can be able to spell out in this bill that everyone who is a graduate, regardless of their age and their year of graduation, is actually entitled to an internship opportunity so that they can be able to gain experience. So, Honorable Speaker, I support this bill in totality, and I appreciate Honorable Naisula Lesuda for being able to come up with it so that we can be able to bring sanity to the internship, the PSC structure, Honorable Speaker, and accord an opportunity for every graduate who has gone through the hard job of going to school so that they can be able to transition to formal employment. Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you very much, Honorable Cynthia. The Honorable Ferdinand Wanyonyi, member for Kwanza.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I've been here, but I think I just want to take this opportunity to thank Honorable Nesula for coming up with this. I think it's long overdue. I want to thank you. And then the way you explained and the way the people actually are talking about this particular bill is right time, and I think let's move forward to confirm actually this particular bill, because internship is actually preparation and narrowing down on specific field. We had cases where, one has, even if you have got your master's or even a bachelor's degree, but more specifically now you have to narrow down to what that specific field is. And therefore, the preparation for that particular job, I think, is only fair. I have been myself a managing director on 3-4 parastatals, and you get graduates from the university, and he comes there, and he's done administration. But he doesn't know what it's all about. Literally, you have to tell him what to do, because those are all theoretical things in the classroom. When it comes to productivity, Madam Speaker, you'll find that this particular person with that kind of high-class qualification was not be able to prepare yourself, is not prepared to do the job, and the end results, you find that there's a problem with productivity. And therefore, this internship, to me, and I want to agree with the mover that we should do it yesterday, so that you can be able to prepare and people can be focused on whatever it is that is supposed to be doing. And that is important, because if you have to have the country that has high productivity, you go to Europe, you go to some other countries, they have actually had a time to train internship, to train the people, so that by the time they come to do the job, they are properly focused on what should be done. So this particular bill is very, very important, and I want to say, Madam Speaker, I think it's time for us to be able to do this. We also want to have this also in the private, other than public. We also have to extend this here also. If you pass it, it can also apply in the private sector, so that even the private sector as well can be able to do that preparation of whoever is going to be employed, so that they are more focused, so they can have better productivity in whatever field that that particular person is actually employed or hired. Internship I've seen around, and the teachers, GSS, I think because there was nothing, there's nothing to refer to. But now that we couldn't have this bill actually passed and made into a law or whatever, then of course people working as intern can be given. It's actually interfering with my. Yeah, you find that people actually who are employed, they should be paid some little allowances. You can imagine you stay in Takoradi and your child is going all the way to Jomo Kenyatta for whatever internship. How will he be able to travel to Jomo Kenyatta and even be there for whatever period? So let's also have for the minimum that you can be able to be paid to this internship fellows who can be able to sustain themselves. Because basically, and that's why actually the CSS students, or rather teachers who are employed, were complaining. They are not being given enough. But let's also give a minimum that can be able to sustain them, so that they can be able to be more productive than just leaving it as it is. And because the internship, they are not paid anything. No, let's also be their brother's keeper. And therefore, Madam Speaker, I just want to say my contribution here is that the interns, we can also give whatever percentage that they could be able to be paid so that they're actually motivated. And you know, when somebody is motivated, he'll do better. He'll be more focused. And by the time that they get employed, they actually become very productive. So my move is that interns, even the Teacher Service Commission, I understand, and it's now in the public domain, that they have actually dismissed those who are demonstrating. Okay, fine, that's true. They did that without permission. But look, I think what they were asking for is something that is going to be reasonable enough for them to be able to be where they are. Because they're also dependents, and there are people who also depend on them, much as are just their internships. So, Madam Speaker, I want to take this opportunity to thank the mover of this bill, and I think let's all come together to be able to pass it so that I can be able to have it applied yesterday, not today. Thank you so much.
Thank you. The Honorable Phyllis Barto, member for Moiben.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me the opportunity. I would wish to use this chance to congratulate the Honorable Lesuda for bringing this bill, which is very timely. Madam Speaker, of late, we have seen so many interns in the streets demonstrating, starting from the medical interns to the teachers in JSS, and maybe there are others on the way. And I think this internship business should be put in a legal framework so that it is structured and we'll not see such cases of strikes by the interns. Madam Speaker, an intern or internship is supposed to be a launching pad for one who is in a career. And Madam Speaker, it is very clear that when you are an intern, you are not a full-time employee. You are just practicing. You are learning what you are trying to put in practice, what you obtained in a classroom in theory, and you are going to the field or you are going to a work environment to go and practice, to go and see whether the learning took place in a learning environment. But Madam Speaker, what is very clear is that the internship business has been misunderstood to an extent that those who go for internship, their workload is not very clear. Some are given full-time duties, and the compensation is not commensurate with what they are supposed to be, with the duties they are performing. And what happens? We see them going to the streets because they feel they are misused. They feel their rights are violated, and it is not in tandem with what they earn at the end of the month. So, Madam Speaker, it is very clear, it is very important that in this bill, we look at very important ingredients which will add or which will make this bill or which will make this internship very, very structured. One is the issue of the workload. It should be very clear that when you go or when you are taken in as an intern, what is your job description and who is your supervisor? These people are on training and they should be having a supervisor, and their work should be cut out so that they are very clear from the beginning what is expected of them and what they are supposed to be doing. The other day, we saw the teachers, the JSS teachers in the streets. They were demonstrating because they felt that when they went to school, the workload was equivalent to the rest of the teachers who are on permanent and pensionable. So they felt that they went to the streets. And it is unfortunate, Madam Speaker, that the Teacher Service Commission went ahead to sack them. Who are they sacking? Those who are just trainees, who are not supposed to be, they were supposed to be called and explain to they are still on training, so you are not supposed to be sacking them. You are supposed to call them back to class and explain to them what is required of them, the ethos, the requirements, the ethical requirements of a job, because they are still on training. They have not reached that level where they are supposed to be sacked because they are not employees of the Teacher Service Commission. They are interns. So I think the TSC should withdraw those letters, and the interns have actually accepted to go back to class and now help them to learn, train them to be better teachers. And Madam Speaker, also, teachers go for teaching practice, and they go, primary school teachers, they go for teaching practice, secondary school teachers, they go for teaching practice. So the issue of internship is an illegality in its essence, because they have already gone through internship. What should happen is that I wish they can relook at that section of the policy and ensure that maybe during the teaching practice they go for a longer period and they give them some stipends so that they do away with this business of internship. Madam Speaker, apart from that is the transition after internship. What next? Do you just finish and pack your bags and say, now I've been trained, I've learned, I am very competent, so what next? Do I just go back and wait indefinitely for a job? We should put structures in place so that an institution can take in the number of interns, as many interns, and those interns transit to the job market, so that once you are done with your internship, now you are upgraded and you are given an opportunity now to serve as a full-time employee of that institution. Also, Madam Speaker, the private sector should also be given incentives, because they also support, so that they also support these. They support the interns and they take them in, because they are also they contribute to the employment grid in Kenya. So it should not just be the issue of public institutions, but we should also come up with an internship policy, a bill which caters for everybody, and it puts the requirements for the do's and the don'ts for any intern in any organization across the board in the entire country, so that there is unity and there is a clear policy on how this internship is going to be operationalized in its entirety. Madam Speaker, it should also, these interns should also be supervised. There should be a supervision. There should be somebody to supervise them and give a report, so that it is not just an internship, you participate, and then when you are done, you are gone. There is nothing, you can't even have evidence to show that this is the performance, so that even those interns take their job seriously and they know the consequences of absconding duty, or the consequences of any other illegality they find themselves in their, once you serve as an intern. And Madam Speaker, I will have some amendments to bring when the section will be done. And let me use this chance to just support the bill and congratulate the Member of Parliament and end my case there, so that I can give somebody else an opportunity to make a contribution. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Honourable Members. Next is the Honourable Paul Nabuin, Member for Turkana North.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to give my voice into this bill. On the onset, Madam Speaker, I want to thank and appreciate the move of this bill for coming up with this legal framework that is going to fill a gap, a lacuna in law that has existed for a long time. Madam Speaker, our country is known for producing very good human resource in the region. But the gap that has existed for a long time is how these young people who come out from the university or from colleges can put in practice the knowledge and know-how of what they have learned from the teaching institutions. So this law is going to bridge that gap. The other thing, Madam Speaker, is in most of the jobs, full employment opportunities that come out, there's existed a prerequisite for experience. And with our graduates going through internship, that will provide them with experience for transition from internship to full employment. Madam Speaker, the young people that come from the university come with good knowledge that might have not been learnt by those who have existed in some of those positions. So internship will provide them with space to support the existing workforce in ensuring that the knowledge, the modern knowledge they have acquired from the university is put in practice and support modern systems that are come through. Madam Speaker, I want to believe once this bill is passed and becomes law, there will be a policy framework that will be developed to guide the process of recruitment, placement, and practice of interns in their areas of work. Mr. Speaker, the other thing I wanted to mention is about the stipend that should be given to these interns. I think with the policy framework that will be developed once this law is put in place, it will guide the minimum wage or the minimum stipend that these interns will get. That will help them from being exploited by a number of institutions that have been having these interns in place. Mr. Speaker, the other thing I wanted to mention on this is interns, once the 12 months period of internship is expired, there should be a transitional process where we don't just produce interns again and get them to the villages. These interns should automatically be absorbed into the institutions that have been working. And lastly, Mr. Speaker, the interns, once they are done with the internship, and I think I have just mentioned that they should be we should have a policy that helps them to transition to full employment. With that, Mr. Speaker, I support this bill. Thank you.
The Honourable MP for Kericho, Madam Beatrice Kemei.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to stand. And on the onset, I support this bill, the Public Service Internship Bill 2022 by Honourable Naisula Lesuda. And I want to say thank you so much, Honourable, for bringing it at the time when we have issues with unemployment in this country, where when you look at it, over 10 million people are unemployed. these are our youth, and apart from youth, these are also the young adults. Honorable Speaker, when we talk of this bill, I'm impressed by the fact that it is speaking to the graduates from colleges, universities, who have certificate, diploma, degrees, and so forth. With the internship program, they will add to their skills, being there for 12 months. They will add to the experience so that when it comes to employment, at least they will talk of an experience of 1 year. Honorable Speaker, this bill has come at a time when the Teacher Service Commission has done something that I condemn with the strongest terms possible. Yesterday, Honorable Speaker, when I listened to this fact that 742 interns or who are in internship engagement have been terminated, I felt sad. And not only that, Honorable Speaker, I'm even more sad that out of the 742, 164 comes from Kericho County. That is 22.1%. Honorable Speaker, what does that mean? Does it mean it is only from Kericho who went to the streets to speak and to ask for their rights? 164. Mr. Speaker, sir, what is the TSC County Director saying about this? Because I'm sure he's the one in charge, and the sub-county directors. Does it mean, Honorable Speaker, that the head teachers and the principals are the ones who are actually blaming all this, looking at the other counties with 0 interns being terminated, and others too, and maybe for Samburu 40 of them, and it is very sad. To me, that is malice. To me, that is witch hunting, and I call upon the TSC to still relook at the case of the interns. The other day, we had the doctors for over 2 months, but none of them were terminated. But here, for the TSC, I request that they still look into this issue. And Honorable Speaker, the Committee on Education should also come forth and look into this issue. I'm so sad, and I feel more sad because of that. And maybe to add on this, Honorable Speaker, I would also say that the interns should be supervised, should be guided, should be encouraged, should not be given so much work compared to what they are actually, the stipend they are getting. And not to forget, Honorable Speaker, these interns, when we talk of, maybe when the time comes, the Honorable Member should spell it out very clearly, or an amendment. We have those with certificate, those with diploma, and those with degrees. The stipend, should it be the same for all of them, or how is it to be? At least some framework should be put in place in line with this. And I would also want to ask that, and when that time comes, we also look at this point whereby those who finished maybe 5 years or 10 years ago, are they still to be observed? They should not be discriminated upon. Looking into, putting into consideration that many of our people completed or graduated from colleges and universities or tertiaries over 10 years ago, but they are not employed. So when this program comes or this opportunity comes, they should not be discriminated upon. I would also ask organizations who are actually observing these interns, whenever there is an opportunity, those who actually were engaged in internship program in these organizations should be given the first priority because they have learned about the organization they have served. I would actually plead that they be given the opportunity. And I'm still, when that time comes for amendment, something should also come forth that is going to cover for the private organizations. These are also the organizations, the sector that absorbs most of our unemployed people. But at least a policy or a regulation to guide them also when it comes to issues of stipend, the length of the internship, issues to do with other benefits like the insurance, and even those who are eligible for the same. Otherwise, I support this bill in a big way, and once more I say congratulations, Mheshimiwa. Thank you.
The Honorable Irene Mayaka.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for the opportunity. Honorable Speaker, I also stand to join my other colleagues in supporting this very progressive bill by the Honorable Lesuda, and we want to really thank her for bringing this bill to the floor of the House. Honorable Speaker, one of the things that I really like about this bill is that it seeks to have a proper process and structure on how internship is managed in this country, and specifically in the public service sector. Honorable Speaker, I would just like to mention some of the clauses that I find very progressive. One of them being the Declaration of Opportunities, which is clause number 6. Clause number 8, which talks about a management committee of the internship. Clause number 11, which speaks about that the interns should be provided with personal accident insurance cover for the valid for the period of internship. Honorable Speaker, I think these are very progressive because it then speaks directly to the management of internship and ensuring that the human resource departments in the public service are giving these interns their specific protection in terms of the cover, and that the procedure within which it has been laid down is properly followed because now it is covered in the bill. Honorable Speaker, this will also ensure that we avoid cherry picking when it comes to internship procedures, that each department decides on its own how they want to manage interns. This will make sure that we are actually doing this in a process that is managed centrally and that can be able to be referenced back to the bill, and especially once it becomes an act. Honorable Speaker, there's however something that I really feel we should borrow from the private sector in terms of how they manage internship and trainees. Because in the private sector, they not only have internships for graduates, but they also have something called the management trainee. And this is especially practiced in the banking industry. Because by doing that, then what they do is that they recruit fresh graduates who are also trained to be in the management space. Because right now, if you want to get into a management job, it's one of the conditions is that you must have 10 years working experience. But Honorable Speaker, we also want to encourage our young people to quickly get into the management space so that they're not only employed as clerks, but that they also get an opportunity to be actual managers within this working space. And I feel like this is something that public service sector should actually borrow from the private sector so that we encourage more and more young people to get into the management space as early as we can. Honorable Speaker, and this is because even when you look in Parliament right now, we do have young people who are parliamentarians. They're not waiting until they're much older to become parliamentarians. So let's encourage young people to also get into leadership spaces as early as we can. Honorable Speaker, the other thing that I would really like for us to borrow is best practice from countries like England, China, Thailand, in how they do their internship, because what they do for them is that there's an automatic absorption. And I'm hoping that in future, when this becomes more progressive and the structures become more engraved in our public service, that we can have a process where When it comes to absorption into permanent positions, the interns are given first priority. The other thing that I would really like to encourage as Honorable Speaker is that when people graduate, we have a process of first in, first out. What I mean by this is the people who graduate first are considered before we consider the younger ones.